Welcome back. This is KE24 this morning. Look at the big stories of the day in your newspaper review. This is the third leg and final leg of it. Your tweets coming in, of course, at KE24 TV. Honorable Onyonka, you are shocked when you're told about how an intern was made an acting authority in a particular department and took over. Kelvin Mongai says, morning team, fabulous debate. The intern issue taking over is not something new. In fact, it happens everywhere and it's known. I've seen it several times. So there's a key fundamental issue in terms of even the transparency
and accountability of the whole. It's like I said, it is an incredibly brilliant idea from the executive, and every time, this is what baffles me. I have never understood, but I think we are now beginning to see a trend. Jubilee comes with incredibly brilliant ideas, and when this idea comes, now you go to the issue of execution. Okay, let's and implementation. Let's
stick to this, the issue of ideas and the SGR idea, because as we took the break, Honorable Onyonka has spoken about the fact that, okay, yes, there are very many brilliant minds, but let's accept that there's a mistake we made. Honorable Kioni, I'll come to
before Honorable Kioni comes in, please, one last minute, my brother. One last minute. The last point I wanted to make about SGR is very simple. You cannot regulate a free market for whatever reason you want to do, once you have decided that you're actually going to have a capitalistic market which is going to be determined by demand and supply. So when you start telling an owner, and the government means well, when they say, we don't want these trucks on the highway because after all, that's how our roads are being dilapidated. But if SGR is not going to give a transporter from Mombasa to Nairobi an advantage, they will continue using their trucks. It doesn't matter what regulations you bring.
Honorable Kioni, let you have
two
you
things. One, I had a discussion on this issue with a visiting delegation from China. And I was picked among other members of parliament to receive them. And this was an issue that was before us then, and not long time ago. And one of the things they said, of course, with knowing that they are the ones who give us the money, they are the ones who do the construction, they are the ones, they said the kind of figures that they are already seeing from SGR, given that it is just some 3, 4, 5 years old, is encouraging. We should not have expected to break even on the first, the second, third year. And they are confident that the project is on its right course. Why I am happy to listen to what my colleagues are saying about this, because without criticism you cannot be better. I'm also reminded, and I was in this debate again, when we did the simple thing of Thika Superhighway. And I tell you, the hurabaru about it was that how can this happen? How do we borrow money to take people? Today, every other area would want to do Thika Superhighway. We want now to move it to Marwa. It's called Marwa. And it's a viable thing. I mean, but when we conceived it, the amount of vitriol that came, and I'm just using that as a simple example of why we must conceive those mega projects, and we must commend those people who are able to dream beyond ourselves. We have the RAPSET project that is supposed to run through some very completely unoccupied areas, very sparsely populated areas. But again, the same had not been done with this railway the old one that we are replacing. When it was being done, there were no people along it, there were no shopping centers, but it is our economic corridor. It is the corridor that has helped us grow our GDP up to where we are for the last 100 years. We need to open other corridors, economic corridors. And SGR is going through some new areas. And in so doing, we need those new areas will also open up, and we'll have economic corridors, we'll have economic activities, Kenyans will have employment, we'll be able to grow our GDP to even 6 trillion. And that's one of the arguments that have been put before us. So it is very important to allow us to dream. And as we dream, we certainly need to hear the other voices asking those questions, because those questions are the ones that would help us then answer them, and by answering them, you grow the economy. When we talk about the issue of, there is another issue that comes out, and you have mentioned it, the issue of an intern taking over. It's not a bad thing, but there is something that is happening somewhere which we need to fix quickly. the transition, because we are now in a transition. We are moving this management of our country to the next generation. And the next generation is a question of who are in the next generation, and it's all of us, and perhaps none of us. But when we are moving, one of the things again that came out of Gedhu's mouth yesterday was this, that the age, we have to be careful as a country so that the persons who are taking over are people who have experience and are able to sit at the same table with those people who come from the private sector or even from the parastatals, because the kind of salary structure that is there now seems to favor people outside the public sector and favoring people in commissions in the private sector, such that when you walk into an office and you are going to negotiate this loan for the country, you meet a very young person who cannot be able to come to the level of, like, if you have this CEO from the one who sponsored this guy who was learning, the man who broke the INEOS, and our great guy, Koske. Even the CEO of INEOS comes in and fights you on the other side representing the government. If you are not at par, you are not likely to be able to negotiate well. And that's the kind of danger that we are now facing as a country. Because it's better elsewhere than in government. And this was a scenario that we were in the 80s and 90s. Until when the government came and said, we are upping the salaries of the civil service, the terms of the civil servants, and to the point where, again, people from the private sector went back to the civil service. And they are able to negotiate on behalf of the public, and we are able to get the best for the public service. So these things are all tied. But I am one person who will never fear to dream big. I really want this SGR all the way to Uganda, because it will pay itself at one point. And, it's an interesting point we as Kenyans will actually be able to adjust to that system. For now, my colleague says when you go to Suswa, the only thing you can do is eat meat. And you'll eat meat for the coming couple of months. But now he knows there's something that needs to be done in Suswa other than eating meat. An investor will go there and take an investment, create employment there, another economic hub, another economic corridor, and the country will be able to grow the GDP to 6 trillion shillings.
It's an interesting point you've raised there in terms of the internship program and in terms of the current generation also coming into leadership positions. And I want us to move from the SGR debate to this particular issue that has brought quite an uproar. Of course, you've seen it on social media with the appointment of Mary Wambui to the National Employment Authority. Very many people talking about the fact that there are very many other people who are quite younger, quite capable to run these particular organizations. Yet, as we say constitutionally, and of course we can talk about this in the fact that the appointments should also reflect, the face of Kenya. Kenya has a very young face when you look at the youth demographic. But you're looking at some of the posts, we're looking at what we're getting from the sports fund, for instance, with Moody Award, you're looking at KRA, and you're like, okay, fine. And there are younger people who can also fit this particular bill, because as you said, we look at private sector, we have 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds who are running huge organizations. What happens from when it comes to these particular appointments, Honorable Kioni?
One is that when you say the face of Kenya includes the old people. And the fact that a person has advanced in age does not say that he should not earn and he should not be appointed. Without doubt, we must continue appointing the young people, but don't wish away the old people. I mean, I find it very, very amazing and interesting that the fact that we have a young population is like the old people should not eat, they should not wake up, they should not sleep, they should die. So I don't buy that argument. It is important that appointments be done. Yes, we have the young population, they need to be given opportunity. But the fact that Mary Wambui has been appointed, I cannot condemn her on the basis of just age. Right. The issue is whether there is competence, is he going to be able to add value to the organization. And this is also what I'm saying. You can't just have the young people flock everywhere and take over. You need transition. You need to be, there is need for that smooth transition. Unless you're saying is you have to do away with this generation and that will not help us as a country. We must move on and hand over. And this is the thing. There are many sayings in our vernaculars. I can't use them here. But there are very many sayings in our vernaculars that cause you to hand over, but hand over gradually. Don't just drop it and run away. So appointment of our boy helps us to discuss this thing. And I really would not want, I have served with her, I know her, I know what contributions she has also had in this country. It is also not good to wish to just, there's a community in this country, I'm told, that when you get to a given age and they realize that you have become a liability, they take you to the top of a hill and roll you down. And when by the time you are getting to the bottom, certainly they don't even need to bother with you because everything is done. That's the kind of mentality we must avoid it in our country.
I can see Honorable Onyonka nodding in agreement in this particular issue, but what we're also trying to bring to the fore is not a personal issue with Mary Wambui, but the fact that we're looking at it with the youth being the majority in terms of the demographic, they don't feel they're adequately represented in terms of these appointments. Is that a valid case put forward?
And even as Onyonka takes over, come to Parliament, for example. Today, I have a bill on the special interest groups. Right. And one of the groups that we want to empower is the youth. Right. But even as we discuss this bill, look at the population of MPs, the age of MPs in the House. Majority of them are youth. So you cannot say that the youth are not being given opportunity. It's only that when one happens that is not inside their bracket, there is all this talk.
Honorable Onyonka.
Actually, on this matter, I was supporting Honorable Kioni. The appointment of individuals to any position of responsibility should be based on integrity, capacity, and capability. We must never take an issue of saying, for example, you come to a studio like this, and if somebody was working in this studio and having a program and he was the age of 70, that must never be used against that individual because they are the age of 70. Even when youth have very critical issues, and right now it's a very sensitive issue, I would want to tell Kenyans that the president is allowed constitutionally to actually nominate and select whoever that he may so wish, if that person is ready and willing to serve the country with dignity. And as we have discussed, Mama Mary Wambui has served this country for a very long time. She has been in politics for the last 50 years. And if the president felt that instead of leaving her at home to hibernate and basically have nothing to do, and therefore he might bring her on board and give her something to do, the way he did with Mudi Awori, for me, I'm comfortable. I've sometimes also made those decisions, very difficult decisions, like you will have a scenario whereby the days when Mheshimiwa Kioni, we used to appoint members to the CDF board. And I would pick somebody from an area that is not near my village. But you'd find my members of my family were up in arms against me. They would say, how could you pick somebody from such an area? In fact, that person is not even a member of our community. Because in my area, Kisii town, which I represent, has got members of the Luo community, has got every... And you find relatives ganging up telling me, why did you make that decision? And yet we have no jobs and we need to be taken care of. And I had to explain that there are certain political interests and other interests, and I felt that this individual, who I gave this position of, for example, being the chairman of the bursary, was based purely not on capability and on politics, but I felt that this is an individual who would be fair and reasonable because my experience of having known him made me make that decision.
Mr. Bosire, some people talking about the fact that there's nothing wrong with having them in office. And again, the thing is, very huge demographic in terms of the youth, but also you want that vibrancy, you want somebody who's out there and hungry to move this corporation forward. Having somebody who's been there for 50 years, might that be the direction, or should you look for younger people? And that's the discussion that wants to be had.
I entirely agree with what the Ashmiras have said about discrimination on age or any other parameter is wrong. We can't say because you are old, you don't need to be here. Having said that, there is something that we use that same kind of rationale to what we call in the Kenyan public speak called recycling. The same people were there yesterday, they will be there tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. When are we seeing new blood breaking into this thing? And that's where the interface of internship was coming in, to impart new skills and experiences for the young people to come in. But again, what has marred this whole thing is that how are we being honest in the way we are doing this thing? The discussion is about honesty and our integrity, the way we do it. We have to see, a lot of these people are guys who have been there. They can be on an advisory board and help break in. But there is not that discernible. Maybe it is very, very subtle. But there must be a way that we are breaking in new blood into these
So that's the issue.
That is the
transition
system. And then the criteria that we are using. But as it is today, it's a reward system. The president has that latitude to make the appointments. Why don't we see another senior citizen who has not been dominating the public scene also being given a chance? And that's why, for me, this thing about internship is very passionate. But our bad manners is threatening to derail this project.
Right.
We must have a clear-cut criteria saying, if X is understudying X, where would we want to harness that skill?
Right.
Because we might just do internship for the heck of it, and after that, there's nothing else to do.
Right.
And I wanted to say this. Mheshimiwa Onyonka has mentioned something that some people are being replaced, being told your intern is going in. I hope nobody is using this in government to do what we call backdoor employment and shutting other guys out. Because I know there's a freeze in public service in terms of hiring. Some people might be bringing in people who are actually
as a loophole
over interns. They're not interns in quotes to try and push out other people.
Right.
And I think what ails this country is having an honest discussion and doing an honest thing above board.
Right.
Because there will always be doubt, there will always be discussion, there will be anything else, unless you do something above the table.
Even as we get to our final topic of the day, before we get into our parting shots this morning, let's talk about the Punguza Mzigo bill. Another county, another rejection, something that had really caught public euphoria on this one. But also, even as it goes through the counties, Dr. Kuro Court saying there's still a plan. Even after this, he still has a hidden card. You don't know what that will be as of now. But there ought to be a constitutional petition that the Third Way Alliance is putting against the BBI. They want to take it to court, talking about the BBI being unconstitutional, seeking the task force to refund public money. Let me bring in Honorable Kioni on this one, because you're also the chair of the CIOC. In terms of the constitutionality of the Building Bridges Initiative task force team, it's gone around the country, it's gotten views, it should give its report by next week. Do they have a valid case even as they take this forward from where you stand in terms of implementation of the Constitution?
Even before that, you see this lack of succession plan.
It's not
killing
only from
family.
state level.
So it's not just at the state level. The issue of succession, the young people coming to take over and managing, including family-owned farms, you can actually see it's an issue that we need to really discuss. And I'm very passionate, as Mheshimiwa has said, also very emotive, because we have very many young people who are unemployed, and as we discuss it, we have always to be sensitive to their feelings. And when one has no employment, you cannot quite make a lot of argument with him. But on the issue of BBI, BBI is a good initiative. It was conceived by political leaders in this country, and there is room for that in the Constitution. You can always do that. Even Akuru Court issue was also conceived by private individuals in the private sector, people who think that the country should be managed differently. But it's also telling, and this is what you have to wake up to as Kenyans. There is a lot of debate that will go and emotions, and then people will decide, and they can actually even support you to go on with an initiative. But when time of reckoning comes, and they start asking, Ebu tell us, in Kiswahili they say, Ebu tell us, what does that exactly mean? And it's then interpreted to Kenyans. Then you'll actually see Kenyans saying, this, we know we have a problem with the Mzigo, but this Mzigo, what you have come to do is not to Puguzaring the Mzigo we always thought it was the Mzigo. So you have to understand what is the Mzigo in people's minds, and what is the Mzigo in your mind, what is the Mzigo in the document, and move it that way. BBI equally has really hyped the expectations of Kenyans. When it is put on the table, you can never tell which directions Kenyans will take on it. Right. So they have to be very, very careful in the way they navigate with it. And I can tell you, listening, because we are doing a kind of an audit on the status of implementation of the Constitution, a parliamentary mandate, a parliamentary initiative, and we'll be reporting to Parliament. We have actually even invited BBI to come and share with us there. the thoughts that they may have generated over the period that they were moving around. But how they handle the baby that is now in their hands, they have to be very, very careful.
Right.
What you include in any constitutional amendment that you have to be very, very careful. For what reason? For the reasons that even by the time we give ourselves this 2010 constitution, there were so many issues that were going around. And yesterday, the former AG was able to mention some of those things. You would mention Majibo. No, not Majibo. You'd mention devolution. And you say we want a devolved system of governance. And everybody will say, devolution is the Majibo you've been telling us since 1963. We do not want to touch it. Those prejudices informed why we have 47 counties. Now, maybe it's time to think, do we need 47? Do we need 20? How many can we do? But as you do that, you must always know that there is a group that have a county. And for you to get to 20, you'll be taking it away from them.
Right.
What you give them, how you convince them for them to allow us to move to 20, it's not a thing that you just decide, wake up one morning and take away with. We are saying that without doubt, there is need for inclusion. We need to have an expanded executive. How you do it, how you convince Kenyans, don't take it upon yourself as an individual and think you can do it. You must get everybody to discuss, and you must allow everybody to buy into it. So it's not something you can run away with alone. And I have said this, as we think through areas of the Constitution that we want to amend, listen to Kenyans and do what they have already accepted. For example, like now, when they say Puguza Mzigo, I think our court will have gotten it wrong. Puguza Mzigo, it has also been hyped around the salaries of MPs and people who are elected. But when you look at the report that was done by Mutava Musemi in the 11th Parliament, it clearly lays the areas that requires to be dealt with for us to reduce the cost of running the government. And we are being told there's 500 billion shillings that is being used by the executive through duplication, including too many commissions that are doing the same work that is being done by the executive. Even within the political sphere, we have positions that Kenyans have actually decided needs to be removed. You will need to go and you need to listen carefully to what they are saying before you come up with a document that is also rejected. Okay. Again, don't have too many things in one document at the same time.
Honorable,
and as you do this, don't think that you can do this amendment or this amendment outside the political establishment.
Honorable,
never ignore or belittle the role of a member of parliament if you do it at your own peril.
As you can see what is happening as of now, as it plays out in different county assemblies right there. Honorable Onyonka, even as they take this constitutional petition, as you look at the BBI and we await the report, do you think this merits the arguments they're putting forward in terms of the team itself being unconstitutional and asking for them to repay the money, the budget that they were given for this particular process up until now?
I'll explain to you. I think for me, I raised this issue somewhere else before. And I told my brother Aukot. Aukot is somebody I've known for many years. We've been friends, even during the drafting of the redrafting of the old constitution to where we are today. And I used to find him very reasonable. And I used to find him, he would listen and then we engage. He has been an expert in South Sudan. Remember there was a time when Kenya was trying to come in to help South Sudan get a referendum, which would then make them an independent country. And Kenya played a role. At that time, I was a deputy minister, so I was there. And I used to meet with him. He has done that in Mali. He's somebody who's actually...
He has the experience.
He has the experience. What has shocked me is that he has personalized Punguza Mzigo. And because he has personalized it, sometimes when you personalize certain things, then your clarity is blurred. And his vision became blurred. Because I'll give you just 3 items. Forget about
Very quickly, please.
Yes, forget about the issue of him talking about our salaries and he's going to remove all this. That can be done. That is not even the biggest one. When you begin to say, I come from Kisii County, but you have Nyamira. For 50 years that Kenya has been, 56 years or whatever, Kenya has been independent, the people of Nyamira always felt like a younger brother, that the Kisii County, Kisii people from Kisii County were subjugating them. And the reason was that Nyamira was far away from Kisii town. The town center made them look like strangers. Now they have their ward, they have their county. My brother, you cannot return the baby back. Once that baby left, it is a done deal. And this was one of the most difficult things that during the last constitutional discussions, whether it was Kilifi, whether it was in Naivasha, this was the issue that there were counties like today, the Tharaka Nithi, which could never have become a county. But the people of Tharaka said, we want to have our own identity. This is what makes us become Kenyans. And this is what makes us want to be part of this outfit. Please don't keep us outside. Finally, in my constituency, I have got 5 wards. Those wards were skillfully and carefully crafted. And you brought in things like clans. There are clan issues. You remember Mheshimiwa Kioni, who were in parliament? Yes. How do you take these clans? And of course, we want to be one country. And yes, we want to be a country that works together. But this issue is about money.
So it all boils down to the money.
It's about resources. So when you take a ward and you are merging this ward to another clan which is bigger, and these people will start asking you, we have been getting resources in our ward. These resources have been helping us to get water. The MCA is bringing something here and there. You are now, who's going to handle this money? What if you take the majority clan, which will be now electing this individual, who is going to come in as an MCA, yes. And this is the guy who will permanently be in that position, and all the resources where they come, they are going to be allocated in his own area.
My goodness, just have a minute.
Those were the sensitivities that have made actually the MCAs reject our courts.
We have a minute before
on the way.
Just before
the minute,
let's get
as you are going there.
On the way.
CDF model,
yes,
is what we must sit as members of parliament and craft for devolved unit.
Resources.
Okay. Reduce all these number of employees,
yes.
Come up with a very lean delivery unit,
yes.
But retain the structure as it is.
Absolutely.
As we are in parting, as we close on this particular issue, because I know Punguza Mzigo would require another show to discuss
It's another show. I just want to say this. Like they've mentioned, our court personalized the issue and he lost traction. For me, he wanted to carry this thing as an court thing and gain political mileage out of it. It was a populist thing, but the political realities, he has now come face to face with the political realities. And he has to step back as an intellectual and say, this is not about me. Let's merge this debate about constitutionalism and raise that one question that talks about us as Kenyans, where we have unanimity.
Okay.
Because there are good things in Punguza, and there are good things in BBI.
Yes. And that's why we'll have to leave it as far as our newspaper review is concerned this morning. We started off and touched on a really hot potato as we wound up, of course, that being the Punguza Mzigo bill, but a very robust discussion this morning. As always, a very big thanks to Managing Editor People, Daily Ken Bosiro, for making time this morning. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ekitutu Chacha MP Richard Onyonka, thank you so much for making time this morning. And of course, Honorable Jeremiah Kioni Ndaragwa MP and Chair of the CIOC, thank you so much for making time this morning, discussing the big issues of the day. But the discussion continues online. Still tweet us at K24 TV to discuss those issues. We take a short break. We are back and we get interactive right here on the show. This is K24 This Morning.